Hello, everyone. Right, we're about ready to go. I do realize this mic isn't output into the room. Don't worry, that's by design. So first of all, thank you all for coming. Lovely to see you all. It's been way too long. Apologies on that one. That is mostly my fault for not organizing things, if I'm brutally honest. So first of all, thank you to Thoughtworks for hosting us. Done a great job on that one. And I do have to say thank you very much to the folks at Jamf for paying for the pizza and the booze. Stepped in at the last minute, helped us out there. That's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. So today we've got 3 talks, not as long as we normally do. We thought you guys might want a bit more time to chat. You folks want a bit more time to chat and get to know each other, maybe catch up, all that kind of stuff. First of all, we have Steve. We're just going to do a bit of jiggery pokery, and I'm going to hand over to Steve. Cool, thank you.
You know, it is really weird having a microphone that isn't doing things, but that's fine. It totally worked. We could hear Daz on the stream. So, hi everyone. I'm Steve. Welcome to Thoughtworks. I'm forgetting that's not my next thing, isn't it? Yeah. It's been a while. I'm a bit rusty. So I guess some boring housekeeping to start with. Also, it's a bit late now. You're all a couple of beers in. Toilets are all the way down there at the end. All the way down the end. Past the printer. Keep going. That's the toilets. If the building goes on fire exits are behind you, you can probably follow me. I'll be first out the door. And St. Anne's Churchyard is where we will be. That's our official rendezvous point when it's Thoughtworkers. I don't know about you lot. We'll see. Anyway, so welcome to TBC because deadlines are hard. So I promised Daz and the others that I would do this talk. I've been rattling this idea around my brain for a little while now. Titles, not so much. Well, I guess I can start with Thoughtworks. So welcome to Thoughtworks London. So if you aren't aware of what we do, and lots of people aren't, we're a global IT consultancy, and we help our clients solve their trickiest problems by writing custom software that helps them do awesome things. And to do that, we use, Macs. We use lots and lots of Macs, and that's cool. But the thing is, and luckily we're not streaming this. We are streaming this live. It's a small room, and I trust you all. So we have a secret, and I feel like I need to share that. So yeah, we are. It's fine. If you can see what I can see when I'm cleaning windows. It was worth the setup. So we have a Windows problem. I feel better saying it and getting it out there. So we have Thoughtworkers who use Windows, not very many. But we have, and I'm sure maybe you're in a similar boat, right? You've got finance users, salespeople, people who really want to use that platform, and it makes life a little bit hard for us because we are very Mac focused. So who am I? So I'm Steve Quirke. My pronouns are he, him. I'm always terrible at the accessible meetings thing. There's the whole. I'm in my mid-40s because it sounds less depressing than middle-aged. I have short brown hair for now, short beard, dark glasses with dark rims. So there you go. I'm part of the TechOps identity team. So we look after Okta, we look after Google, and we look after the identity of devices, which is effectively device management. So on the Mac side, that's simple MDM for now. And of course, this isn't a talk about the Mac stuff, if you hadn't already guessed. I'm going to talk about Windows. So if you want to learn about the Mac side of things at Thoughtworks, I did a talk at Macaduck, he says, shamelessly self-promoting. Nothing much has changed. It's worth a watch. I was terrified, not like now where I'm terrified. So I'm part of TechOps. So we are cloud first. We use Okta, Zoom, Google Workspace, Trello, Mural, you name it. And we have been for a very long time, actually. We were one of the earliest adopters of Google Workspace or G Suite or whatever the hell we're calling it now. And these days, it's cloud first for everything. And that's awesome. But yeah, where does Windows fit in a sort of cloud first Okta, Google world? Yeah, it doesn't. It really doesn't. But you know what? It's okay. This is fine. It's absolutely fine. It's a relatively small number of users. I mean, okay, it includes the CFO and people with all the financial, but it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. And then we decided we'd IPO, and then it stopped being fine. So on the run up to IPO, we thought we'd do something about it. So because my team looked after management of Mac devices, we got naturally the choice to look after managing Windows, despite the fact I haven't really touched a Windows system in anger since Windows 7 about a decade ago. But, you know, what could possibly have changed? And we look at what's in the marketplace. So, you know, Hex, no, Workspace ONE, Intune. And I must admit, my go-to, I was looking for Intune, to be honest. I'm thinking this is a Microsoft problem. These are Microsoft devices. I will buy Microsoft Intune. But the problem with Intune is you can't just buy Intune. Then you need Azure AD and a bunch of other stuff. And as an organization which is very focused on Okta and Google, we don't want to go deeper into that Microsoft ecosystem. So what about something else? Something else. So we'll just use Google. Google is the best way to find out how you manage your devices. No, wait, we can actually use Google. So as part of Google Workspace, Google has a product called Enhanced Desktop Security for Windows. And it is a lightweight Windows MDM. Kind of cool. I mean, I also admit I used Amazon as well for some of my research as well. So the irony was I bought this book, and it turns out all the useful stuff is in the first free chapter. So my apologies to Jeremy Moskowitz for telling you all just to grab the free chapter if this is interesting at all. But the most important bit that he covers is he says this. So you can pick any MDM vendor, provided what they've written meets the standards. So it's kind of like the Mac thing. So Microsoft have kind of, you know, there's an open standard. The docs are all there. And if you buy a client, any client that supports it, then theoretically you're away to the race. So the question is, how deep down the rabbit hole do I want to go? And what have I told you? We could manage Windows with Google. And to be honest, it all seems strangely familiar.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Sorry. Do you speak English?
No, I don't. Sorry.
Oh. My car's broken down, and I wondered if you could tell me where to find a garage.
Well, you know, that's wasted on me. I don't understand what you're saying.
You don't speak any English at all?
Not a word. No. It's one of those things where I wish I paid more attention in school. But excuse me. Sorry. Do you speak any English?
English? No.
So a little bit like that. So Microsoft push notifications are a thing, I learned. Who knew? As I said, there's an open management specification. They've got a thing called a configuration service provider, and they've got a giant list of CSP commands and things that you can push. And Microsoft being Microsoft, unsurprisingly, it's a longer list than Apple. There's way more things you can do. But also Microsoft being Microsoft, it's this horrible mess where you can still use group policy, you can still use SCCM, and you can throw this on top as well. Luckily for us, we didn't have that stuff. So we'll just start with CSP. I think Microsoft's take is this is a little bit more blunt edge. You don't have the same nuance of control as you might have with group policy, but actually this is fine for what we want. So hang on, XML-based config files. So I'd convinced myself actually, so the OMA DM is an open standard. And I had convinced myself as I was writing this talk that Apple were using the same standard. And I was clearly lying to myself because I can't find any proof that it came to me in a fever dream. It's not true. But anyway, it's really, really similar. XML being thrown around through push notifications. This sounds sort of familiar. And again, in common with lots of the Mac vendors, I guess you've got a zillion different MDM commands and you build a GUI around the stuff that you care about or that you want to make easier for your end users. And Google's no different. So in the Google example, they've not built an awful lot. So you've got, you can manage admin privileges, automatic patching, BitLocker encryption, and then the secret source is in the custom settings. You'll notice there's not an awful lot around user password management and stuff like that, but that's because Google have built some magic thing called GCPW, which is their sort of weird Google plugin things. You sign into your Windows device using your Google credentials. And if I was setting this up from scratch, maybe I'd go there. But we had a fleet of existing users, grumpy existing users who'd already insisted they were staying on Windows, kind of cold dead hands mentality, really. And so I wanted the process to be, easy for them. They would enroll and things wouldn't change massively. And then there's Microsoft Witchcraft for the less common settings. So for example, I had to dig into this for password complexity and things like that because I wasn't using GCPW, so I had to delve into this. So this feels a little bit like MCX on Mac, I guess. It's a bit odd. So for example, this is an example of a CSP doc. And Microsoft have got like a zillion things down the side. There's a ton of stuff you can manage. Hundreds of settings for IE. Who knew? So, for example, I want to disable stealth mode for some reason. And then this would be how it's rendered on the Google site. So this is a custom command. I've got these two, enable firewall, enable stealth mode. And then each of the commands will take different things. So maybe it's Boolean, maybe it takes an XML, maybe it takes a string. Your guess is as good as mine. It might work, but it's there. So once again, if there's a CSP that can be delivered, Google can do it, which is kind of cool. It can install packages. So they have to be MSI and they have to be hosted publicly, but you can install packages, which is kind of neat as well. So of course, things aren't perfect. I mean, ignoring the fact I'm wrangling all the custom settings. No autopilot. So if you're familiar with autopilot, autopilot is Microsoft's much more complicated take on zero touch. And to my shock, horror, and surprise, it only works with Intune. Who saw that coming? I am stunned. I think this would be a deal breaker if we deploy Windows at scale, but Windows is an exception. So for me, it's not a big deal, but it might be for you. So management is based on OUs. So if you're a Google Workspace admin, you'll know you can set up a complex or simple OU structure. And it also supports management by group. I mean, broad settings in Google, but this particular stuff is OU. So somebody, I guess the logic is you couldn't put somebody in a group that says firewall on and firewall off, the thing would explode. But it might be a little bit limiting in what you can actually do. For us, it's not been a big deal because we've applied like a fairly light touch policy at the top of the domain and just pushed it down. So, it might be challenging if you wanted a bunch of extra settings for, I don't know, a leadership team or something like that. But for now, top level's fine. Yeah, there is an API. It makes me sad. So again, lots of the Google management stuff, again, if you've worked with the Google Workspace management stuff, there's stuff around managing phones effectively. So there's a whole bunch of stuff around BYOD phones. You can do basic management, advanced management, and all of the APIs are written around that. So if you sneak up to it, you can just about get it to return some information about a PC. You can get a MAC address, you can get a serial number, patch status, loads of useful data. What you can't get is the software installed. There's no software API, which kind of sucks and made our compliance team sad. But what are you going to do? So I'm guessing some of you might be Google customers. Anyone? Cool, right, fine. So at this point, I have to ask and upvote my requests, please. So there's a pretty awesome community, and you can go and ask for feedback and stuff. And I did this, asked for this back in 2021, and I got 5 likes. So someone's listening. But it feels like it's a really weird thing. It's a really capable and interesting product, and no one's really using it, I guess, because everyone's in Intune world. So the end result for us, I have a CISO that can sleep at night. I have a finance lead who doesn't hate me because I haven't had to go and buy a whole stack of Intune licenses, and my machines are basically managed. So, thank you, Nathan Paul, rather. And so, if you're a Google Workspace company, if you're mostly Mac, maybe Google Advanced Windows Management's worth a look. Thank you very much. I feel like it's ultimate level trolling, like coming to a Mac admins and talking about Windows, but trying to claim it's a little bit similar. But I mean, Graham Gilbert, takes a Chromebook and presents at Mac conferences. So what are you going to do? Are there any questions? So the question was, can you use OS Query to fill the gaps? Yes, I mean, that was my first thought, to be honest. And we got as far as playing around with the MSI install. You can use the native MSI install to install OS Query. I'd also be interested in looking at other tools. I mean, maybe things like Collide, stuff like that. But yes, the goal is, I think my hope would be basic Google is fine, and then augment it with some additional tools like that. Yes. Yeah.
My thoughts are kind of similar as well, but all these benefits, why don't the companies do that? Just automatically do that, and the endpoint saying, yeah, I Boolean this and that, display that to the end user.
True. I mean, I guess where my gap was, I never did get a chance to trial a product. I'm forgetting another part of the story was that, like, we were looking, do we buy Intune, do we buy Pexnode or Workspace ONE? And I went, oh, hang on, let's go digging in Google and see what's possible. And the more I dug and the deeper down the rabbit hole I got, I mean, yes, there were, that's like blunt edges, things that didn't work, but you're like, wow, this is doing an awful lot of what we need at a cost that you can't really argue with. We're also a Google partner, so for us to really sort of leverage that, it's a great success story for us too, right? That we're using Google to manage these devices, not Intune. But no, I'd agree. Like it's weird. So I'd like to think that there are probably nicer experiences for those custom commands. Google's is interesting.
From the perspective of
Cool. They are, I think they are pretty good, but I think it depends on the product. So for example, this is pretty niche. So a colleague of mine was able to lean on some people at Google. We had some really fantastic conversations with some Google Cloud partners about how this was used and everything else. But you know, this is niche. Like I can't see anyone at Google rushing to build my features, sadly, even if you vote them all up. But I think the relationship we have with Google in general and all sorts of other products we use is fantastic. This is niche. I get the impression that Google aren't, this is not, you know, that they are not a good Windows management company. This is not getting a lot of love.
But Google also had that. Well, that was a nice experiment.
Well, I know this is true. Google do kill a lot of things. I mean, the other thing for us though is we looked at this when the alpha, it was in the alpha and beta cycles, and we tested it there, and then went, GCPW, that whole linking the two doesn't really work. But I guess by sneaking into GA, you're right, they could kill it. But once it's in GA, I would never have even dreamed of pushing it to an audience as a beta. But it's out there. They've got public facing documentation. And there are people, I mean, you'll see me every now and again, I'll find someone in Slack, they're asking the question. I'm like, do you know what? It's surprisingly all right. You know, this is why I don't work in my, surprisingly all right. Yeah, maybe. All right. Thanks all. Oh, yeah, sure. Wow. Well, that's okay. That's interesting. Wow. I mean, that's so again, to repeat, if you couldn't hear on the microphone, the suggestion is Intune can take a long time to deliver profiles. So I think Google's own doc suggests that you push a new config, it can take up to 4 hours. In my experience, it was almost instant. It really was. We were basically using different OUs to try out different groups of settings, and you'd bounce a user between OUs, and it felt, you know, APNS fast. You know, the changes picked up. I mean, similarly in the Google Cloud Console, you've got logging for each device. The other thing was interesting that I probably should have mentioned as well, that it's not quite like Apple's declarative, but the suggestion is each time the device syncs, it sort of reapplies the settings. So you can see in the logs, each time a device checks in, it's checking, yep, I will redeploy those things. And so there's a sense that it might actually, you know, you might have the state you wanted. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. I'm going to guess that's part of the regular. That's really where Google's 4-hour sync comes in. The idea that Google suggests there's a sync up roughly every 4 hours, but I'm busy prodding the thing, going, now do this, do this, do this. So, I mean, again, with our Mac endpoints, we end up we would do reporting once a day. You know, like our MDM doesn't have like events, so we just poll all umpteen thousand devices and ask what's installed and everything else. So that's the sort of granularity we can deal with. So I think in terms of, I mean, I haven't got software discovery API anyway, Google. But yeah, so. I don't recall there being one, no. I think there were things you can do on the client side, you know, on the laptop itself, you could try to resync. But I don't recall there being much on the management console. But as you can see, it's a fairly lightweight console designed around managing umpteen different devices at once. I mean, by all means, it's not perfect, but as I say, it's surprisingly good.
So you're talking about CSP being the same do you have the same sort of network, the Microsoft?
I would assume so. I mean, it worked in my testing. I didn't dispute down too, but similarly, and again, the questions around, I guess, having to worry about internet ports and APNS traffic. Sorry, Windows push notification traffic being blocked. I guess it would be a concern if so obviously we have control of our own network, but when we send consultants to clients, of course, all bets are off. But in terms of our Windows users, they're ours, they're our finance team and things like that. So we control the network they're on. And so we can fix that if it happens, I guess. But it wasn't a thing that came up in our testing though. Cool. All right, then. I'm going to turn the microphone off, I think. Oh, really? Thanks all. Cheers.
Hey everyone, got another one for you. So first of all, bear with me. I'm using a Keynote remote on my phone, so we'll see how well this goes. Living dangerously. So my name's Darren Wallace. Most people have met me and seen my ugly mug before. I'm one of the London Apple Admins organisers. And most people know me as Daz Wallace. I'm on Slack, all that kind of stuff. Today, I want to share some tips for speaking at meetups, conferences generally, but London Apple Admins for beginners, because I have an invested interest. Because the more you guys speak, the more you folks speak, the less I have to. So I've split this talk into 4 areas, as shown here. Look at preparing, writing a talk, tips for delivering it, trying to deal with nerves, and lastly, how to come up with the talk ideas in the first place. So, preparation and writing your talk. First thing, try to keep words on the slide minimal. They should be used as pointers or summarized information instead of a wall of text. People are here to listen to you talk. The last thing you want for them is to sit and read slides and miss what you said. This is very apt for right now, but if you see my speaker notes, you'll know I'm terrible with this. But then writing out exactly what you want to say isn't really an issue. I find it's a helpful safety net, maybe not, that I can use should I get stuck, especially if you're nervous or haven't had much time to practice. Talking about practicing, try to run through your talk multiple times before the day. Ideally, you want to make sure that it makes sense, fits the timing, and fits the theme of what you're talking about. I find I'll often read what I wanted to say instead of what I actually put down. When it comes to delivering talk, it doesn't kind of make sense. If it helps you, practice until you're super bored, but can recite it almost fully off by heart. As I said, not something I've done with this one, I'm afraid. Try to tell a story throughout your presentation. I haven't done a great job of telling a story of this one. This isn't a great example, I suppose. But do try to walk through the process and the journey. How much you can do this will greatly depend upon the time you have and what you're kind of talking about. But you should still have some sort of organization, some sort of thread tying it all together. This will help keep people engaged and interested, hopefully, and keeps away from appearing as the ramblings of a madman. Bring along a friend. There's no limit on the number of people who can be involved with a presentation, and this may help to share both the work and ease some of your nerves. Obviously, we can't accommodate everyone up here, but we'll do our best. Talk to us. So you've written your talk and you've practiced it until even your neighbors and colleagues can recite it off by heart. Let's talk about delivering it. Shout out to you in here. Not every talk has to be serious, and not every talk has to be 100% serious either. Feel free to add silly GIFs, funny animations, and other things that you find amusing. This not only helps relax you, but helps to keep your audience awake, especially if you're covering drier topics, like Adobe. Comic Sans makes its second appearance in a London Apple Admins talk, I believe. Avoid reading the slides. I know I'm reading my phone instead. This ties in my first point of having fewer words on the slide. If all you're doing is showing a slide and reading it out loud, it's not really a presentation, it's more of a read-along. Having some key points or phrases on show is fine, but try to add value to the fact you're up here. Talk around and about what's on the screen to really give that added value. Being wrong is okay. Obviously, try your best to be as accurate as possible, but no one is perfect, and sometimes we miss something. This can be in our assumptions, our conclusions, or misunderstanding of the information we read to do the talk. That's okay. It's fine. Also, mistakes happen. I know London Apple Admins is a bit famous for it in various guises and extremes. We all flub words, lose our place, or even draw complete blanks mid-talk. We're all friends here. And even if we're not, we're all here to learn and want you to succeed. Hopefully some tips in this talk will avoid making mistakes, but it's inevitable, an expected part of a live delivery of a session. This is one I do struggle with, and that's body language. I get so wrapped up in making sure I'm at the right part of my talk, speaking coherently and not messing up. I tend to struggle to maintain good body language. Yeah. Had to happen at least once. Maintain good body language for delivering a talk. Well, what do I mean? Well, hands. Try to have them visible and try to use them to emphasize your points. Ideally, don't have them in your pockets or hidden away. This helps people feel connected to the talk as well as show you have confidence in it. Eye contact. Try to maintain eye contact with people in your audience. Don't stare lovingly at the same person for the whole duration, but sweep the room. This helps people, again, feel engaged and interested, and it kind of brings them in. Project your voice. Microphones aren't always an option, so try to aim for slightly louder than a normal speaking level. This will make sure people can hear you and are listening, but try to avoid shouting. Speak slowly. This is another one I'm terrible at. Watching my own talks back, I tend to talk in short, fast bursts, which comes across as a bit of a machine gun. Try to speak at a slightly slower pace than normal. This helps your speaking, to come across clearer. And naturally, what you'll find is you speed up as you're nervous, trying to get through it, that kind of stuff. So it kind of hits a nice sort of middle ground. Nerves. The main reason for people not wanting to speak, if I'm honest, and it's fine. It's valid. Nervousness is fine and expected. I don't think I know anyone who's given talks not to suffer from nerves beforehand. Personally, I suffered on and off with anxiety and even panic attacks for a good few years now. And public speaking does not make that easier. And again, that's from someone who's been lucky enough to speak at a few conferences, helps run the London Apple admins, and used to deliver Jamf start training most weeks. But I do enjoy talking about what I like with others. Once I get into the flow, I tend to find it happens naturally and the nerves fade away. As much as I hate to say it, I found that often it's something I've had to push myself through initially to then get past them. If you're still nervous to talk, try attending a few of these meetups. Make friends, have chats, enjoy yourself. For me, knowing most or even just some of the audience makes talking in front of them less of an issue. Or don't. Some people feel much more confident when talking to a room of strangers instead of people they know and have met. We're more than happy to have new people up here sharing their skills and knowledge, as well as the oldies. Got away with that one. Ask for help. If you're not sure, ask for help. Bear in mind, I didn't check with anyone before this, but us 5 London Apple admin organisers are happy to help review your talks or just give random opinions if that's helpful. My suggestion would probably be to chuck it out in the London channel, just because then any of us can help out, or DM individuals, whatever works. There may also be others that don't mind offering some coaching. Feel free to ask about in the London Slack channel. That's how most people tend to find their way here even. Also, some of the other conference channels can offer help, such as PSU Mentors. It's another great channel for delivering talks in general. Obviously, they specialize in PSU talks, but quite often they're more than happy to share tips and suggestions and things. Your workplace may also be able to help. If you're lucky enough to have a marketing team, they may be able to offer some slide decks, review your delivery, and offer feedback. But they may also want to add a requirement to review any content you wish to talk about, so be prepared for that. But on the plus side, you never know. It may also lead to a company-sponsored conference trip or two. We have such great talent here in the UK and close by, from various sectors, levels, experiences, backgrounds, and skills. We want to give you a platform and want to give support to you folks showing that off. Right, topic ideas. So one of the good topic ideas is what you did, essentially. Is there a cool new thing you've built or you're working on for your job? A show and tell type talk could work very well for this, either a deep dive or just a high level overview. Please make sure you check with your employer first to make sure they're okay about you talking about it. Just going to throw that out there. What I learned. Did you have to go out and learn something new? Maybe you had to research or pull together multiple sources of information to deliver a solution. Save time and effort for others by sharing some of that knowledge. Traditionally, that's been blogs, but why not do a presentation or two as well? What about what Apple did? What about something new Apple have released? Maybe there's something new in a recent update, maybe a new feature that other Apple admins should know about. Recent examples have included the fun and games of managing macOS Ventura upgrades, or the changes to manage login items. All great examples where someone had to do, at least one person's had to do a bit of effort, and you can show off. What about some cool tech? Something techy or geeky and cool? We've had a talk about the BBC Micro. What about other older systems? What about emulators or computing history, or a selection of tools that you use for work? All would make great possible talks. Power skills, previously known as soft skills. I like power skills better. Are there any power skills you can share your knowledge and experiences about? Dealing with tough customers or users, managing workloads, avoiding burnout, things like this talk. Right, nearly done, don't worry. One more thing, well, two more things. Trial runs. So we want to use the London Apple Admins platform to help Apple admins in this area practice their skills and develop talks. We also want to help them to be comfortable speaking at conferences around the world, if that's what they want to do. As mentioned already, we have such great talent here, and we want to help people showcase that. Most importantly though, have fun. This is intentionally an informal setting outside of most people's workplaces. Sorry, Steve. Make sure it's something you enjoy. If it's not something you enjoy, or you don't want to push yourself to do it, that's also fine. It's not a problem. We won't kick you out. It's fine. Oh, and don't talk to Ben before you're happy to speak. Otherwise, your name will be on the list already. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Thanks. That's it for me rambling. Any questions from anyone? Love a room of silence. I won't necessarily name drop you on the stream, but there is a volunteer from the London's channel to help out, review talks, just help out in general, coaching, that kind of thing. Cool. No more questions. This makes it easy for me. Obviously, if you do have any questions, feel free to grab me. It's not a problem. But if you want to get involved, scan that QR code. It takes you to the page on the London Apple Admins website. There's a form to fill in if you want to do a session, do a talk, that kind of thing. Or if you're lucky enough to be able to offer a position to host us. We're a very nomadic group. We're intentionally vendor agnostic. We'll happily go with whoever will take us. I won't say any more than that because I'll probably dig myself a hole. But sorry, one more. It's a great point. Yeah. Good point raised there. That even if someone else has delivered a talk that you wanted to deliver, or close enough that you feel uncomfortable, still do it. It's always good to see other opinions, maybe other ways of tackling the problem. Even if you come to the same conclusions, it's still nice to see the journey from someone else's point of view and get that separate understanding. I know sometimes when things are explained, it doesn't make sense until it's explained 2 or 3 other ways, and it kind of all clicks together. It does not have to be about macOS. We will accept talks from Google management of Windows devices. Or BBC Micro. Shout out to Adobe Dom. Cool. I think that's enough of my rambling for now. We have one more session tonight, and then a bit more of a networking kind of catch up with everyone. So thank you very much for listening to me ramble. I will stop.
So thanks, Aaron. I'm in the worst position ever after your talk about how to do a presentation on London Lab Planning, because I haven't followed a single step of what you just presented. So here we are. By the way, my name is Matteo. I work at Jamf. I'm a product specialist. I do run a super small blog, scarlet.dev, if anyone for any more reason care. So tonight we're gonna be here talking unified logging. We're gonna do like a brief introduction, how we're gonna get get started. We're gonna see some examples and then and then we're gonna see some resources. So what is unified logging? So to start, unified logging is, Apple defines it as a performant and comprehensive API to capture telemetry across all system levels. What it is basically what it says in the tin, unified logging. So how to get really comprehensive and verbose logging from any system. Logs are stored in memory and data stores. So we're going to see later how they actually persist or not, but they are stored both in memory and in data stores. So they are persistent. And yeah, of course, Apple, so, designed with privacy in mind. Availability. This is something when I talk to people that some of them always find surprisingly. Unified logging has been around for a really, really long time. When we talk iOS, it's been iOS 10, macOS 12, tvOS, watchOS. Don't ask me how to get unified logging out of watchOS. I have absolutely no idea, but they're there. If you know how to, please come and talk to me later at the pub. I'd love to talk to you. So where are these logs? Those logs are basically stored in a database. They're trace v3 formatted. That's Apple proprietary standard for those logs. They are in classic VarDB and diagnostics, so where you will actually expect to find those logs. And they're a compressed binary format. So when you think of that, you're like, okay, it's a compressed binary format. How do I read those logs? Well, Apple provides the console app. It's built in macOS, so you can actually go open the console app and actually go and look at the logs. If you're like me, you'll find that confusing as hell. Come to rescue, Howard Electric Company. He built an app, ULBO. It's fairly interesting. You can get pretty much some very good insight on unified logging. It's a nice UI that you can have in your Mac. It's kind of useful when you actually don't know what you are actually looking after. So you just want to go in a nice UI, put some filters and stuff, and you're just hey, I would just want to check for this stuff. And then the log command. The log command is it's actually a binary. We call it command, but it's actually a binary that is built in macOS, and it's what we are actually going to look into tonight. So if you've never heard about unified logging, what you'll do, you'll open terminal and you'll type log, and your terminal will be completely blown out because you're going to get 1,000 messages per second. So you'll be okay, let me actually do something else. Let me actually just, instead of getting historic command, let me just get the stream. So what's happening now? So you go ahead and type log stream. Log stream still will kind of blow up your terminal because you're still gonna get millions and millions of events coming through. They're not really a good approach, right? So that's kind of a thing, and how we can restrict the search. So what we need is filters. We need to restrict our search. So if we want to restrict our search, we can go kind of in a intuitive style and think okay, what I want to look at. Do I want to look, for example, to a software update process? Don't look in there. It's massive. Don't do what's on the screen, please. If you like your mental sanity. So we can do something process, and we look for the OS installer update D, and it's gonna be super verbose and anything. Or we can start restricting, and we can say, oh, the process might contains something that is, for example, unified logging is very good on this. It's case sensitive, so you can be really, really specific. So when you say, I want to filter for something contains CDs, that is actually for contains, and you can say case sensitive. Bluetooth there is just spelled like that. To give an example, not because I don't know how to write Bluetooth. And then you can do some logical operations. For example, you can say, hey, I'm looking for something that begins with A. I just put like an A, but it could be like, Outlook or Excel or whatever you're actually looking into. And the message contains, in the example is like sharing this is like Apple system for iDrop. But again, it's still like pretty confusing. We're just, trying to get somewhere, right? So what we actually need is to actually figure out how to actually filter those logs that are extremely verbose. And what we're going to use, we're going to actually use what is called a predicate. So a predicate is basically just a parameter that we can actually input in the query that we're running in terminal to actually restrict the search. So for example, you can do like a log stream and we say predicate, we want the process for Safari. This is going to actually stream. So the big difference between log show and stream. So show is going to actually show any historical activity. Stream is going to actually stream what's actually happening from the moment you enter the command. So you can do something like this, and we're going to see all the activity in Safari, and we'll not be able to make anything out of that. I don't know if that's the elevator or the sign that I'm boring everyone, but I'll just assume it's the elevator. So what we actually need is like what are like subsystem and categories. So we actually need to give unified logging a little bit more filtering. So for example, we can actually filter for the actual application that we're looking for. If your company develops an own application, you can actually filter for that, and that's going to be in the subsystem. If it's category, those are like the ways logs are categorized. So if you're looking for something, it's that in setup. So like, a configuration profile that is coming down to your device, is that an in progress operation, like an OS upgrade going on via MDM. I should not talk about that. Or for example, you can look for iDrop and other stuff like that. So that we're starting like to kind of understand how we can kind of like shape a nice filter. So we need to identify the subsystem. So we need to identify, hey, what are we actually looking at? How do you do that? Just default read whatever application you're interested in, and just look at the info plist, and there's the CF bundle identifier. In this case, I'm using Apple Maps just because why not? So in this case, our subsystem, for example, in the predicate of the unified filter will be like com.apple.maps. But you can do that with any application. If you don't know, the identifier, just run a default read it out of the info plist, and you can get the information that you need to actually restrict your unified filter. Logging. A lot of the time when you look at the logs, you're like, oh, it's not in the logs. Yes, it is. There are just different level of logs, especially with macOS, iOS, tvOS is more or less the same, but macOS is particularly smart, trying to keep the log into the system to the less amount possible. Why? When you look at like an entire day of log of a normal computer, so not running anything, that could add up to like several gigabytes of data. So Apple doesn't really want to fill up your user drive with like several gigabytes of data per day. So unified logging is like kind of smart. So at default level, and everything is stored in memory. It's then compressed in data store, and then once it reaches a threshold where it's like deemed to be like too old, it's just purged away. When you're looking at information, pretty much the same, but what's stored in memory, it then gets purged when the memory buffer are full. So I don't want to go too much into the details, but the big difference is like when you're looking to default or informational log level are way more volatile as they get purged way faster. When you specify instead your logging to be debug logs are by default discarded by the OS. So that means that you're not going to see those kind of logs unless you actually require the operating system, be that macOS or iOS, to actually display and save them. So they are discarded by default. And we're going to see in a second how you can request a persistency. When you're actually requiring a log show or log stream, you can actually specify the log level that you want. So if I want debug, if I want information, and so on. If I want default, I don't specify, of course, anything because that's the default option, as the name kind of say. So when we want to set the default log, for example, here I'm using the Jamf binary. You can do that with pretty much any kind of binary that supports reading that. You can also set the level of the logging that you want. By default, usually any binary will log in default logging only. If you want debug, you can actually run a command to actually say, hey, I want this binary to actually turn on debug mode. And you can use the level to say, hey, I want this to actually persist, right? So until the computer actually restarts and then we wipe this out, I want this binary to actually log into debug mode. Of course, this is going to be a little bit verbose, so make sure that you also know how to turn it off. So yeah, log config command, specify the subsystem, and there's a nice -- reset mode to actually turn it off. So let's get to a few examples. We talk about predicates, we talk about subsystem. Let's start trying glue something together. So let's say that I just want to know when a user is airdropping something to another computer, right? So we can look at something like this. So we can look at com.apple sharing, that is the actual process. We can actually look in the process containing airdrop, and then we can actually say begins with, and we just say like system library. And for example, like this is, never found like documentation on this, but it's just like empirical experience that the message within the unified log will start with successfully if it issued sandbox extension 4. And you can run, for example, like the last 10 minutes, because we don't want to like to verbose logging. We're just interested like in the test last 10 minutes, and we want information. So if we do something like this, for example, you can see here, just did a test today, actually. I just shared, I took a screenshot on my Mac, shared it to another Mac, and this is what I actually got logged. So this is something, for example, you can actually look, I know most of all, like within the enterprise world, we'll just disable airdrop, but if you care and if you leave it on, might just want to see what's shared. So you can use a filter like this, and just actually see what's shared. Security, pseudo activity. So for example, we can build a message, build a predicate like this. So we actually want to look for pseudo and event message for the pseudo command. And nope, saved it. And here you can actually see Matteo that forgot his password and typed his password 3 times wrong. Now in this here is just Matteo being Matteo, forgetting his password. But an event like this is something you might be interested, because you probably want to know if someone is like trying to sudo into a user's computer without a valid password. That might be something that we actually care about. This is another example. I don't know. I just found it interesting. Like you can actually point out if a user is actually logging into a Mac using Touch ID. What is, I don't know. I feel like this is interesting just because say that you let your user use Touch ID, right? And then you got like a unified login filter and your user are not using Touch ID like 9 out of 10 of the time, right? So this could be like, if we don't assume anything malicious is going on, maybe the user is having problem with their computer and the Touch ID. So maybe just get a help desk to reach out to them and like, hey, you're having a problem with your Touch ID. Maybe we need to, refurbish your Mac or something. Or maybe there's something else going on, because like if a user has the ability to unlock their Mac with Touch ID, why will they want to type in their super complex password that they have to change every 2 weeks, right? Or whatever we do right now. So maybe this, you could probably like, trigger an alert to your InfoSec team and just say, hey, I don't know what's going on with this user, but they're not using Touch ID, they're just using a password. Maybe have a chat with them and, kick them off the network and the company. Joking, of course. Configuration profile installed manually. That's another thing. I'm not going to go through that thing. It's just too long. But another thing that you can do, and that is in today's world is like pretty interesting, is like, hey, can we actually check if a user installed a configuration profile manually? Because if a user is installing a configuration profile manually, maybe something like completely safe. Maybe they're trying to, hook up to one of those CART portals that say, hey, you have to install this profile that comes with whatever root certificate. maybe it's something else, right? Maybe we should look into if a user is manually installing configuration profile on their device. So this could be handy, right? Just, we got the actual configuration, the configuration profile name, and we actually get the UDID. So if we have like any MDM solution that is able to actually pull in the UDID of the installed configuration profile, we can then go and have a look at the XML of the profile and say, hey, okay, this user installed manually a configuration profile. What's that? Let's have a look. Did they install like, I don't know, any certificates to connect to McDonald's Wi-Fi maybe? Or let's have a look to the actual XML and, maybe something malicious or whatever that we can spot. So we've seen what unified logs are, how we can build them. We've seen a few examples. You're like, okay, yeah, this is all cool, but like it's just a bunch of queries that gets data. How do we actually make a use of it? This presentation is not approved by legal at Jamf. I say that again, it's not approved. For example, you can use a tool like Jamf Protect. What we can do is like, we can basically like take any unified login that you like, just pipe into in Protect, and then we can ship it out to your SIEM or like an S3 bucket or Sentinel. Why will you do that? You can build something interesting, right? So if you ship your logs to, for example, Splunk, you can actually build some nice dashboards. So for example, in here, sorry, I'm probably in the way. We just built like a dashboard to say like, hey, we're actually running a unified logging query to actually pull the Xprotect scan. And we also want to see like, screen sharing connection and login password success. Like here, you see we have very good users that, never input bad passwords like me. But this is probably like a dashboard that is like kind of interesting to share, and you can kind of build data around that. And anything that you can pipe within unified logs with a product like Jamf Protect, you can actually stream that to a SIEM of your choice. Like here's Splunk as an example, but you can do that with Datadog, Elastic, any kind of SIEM that has capabilities. You can pretty much do that. So it's pretty interesting to, visualize that data and transform something like a unified log that for most of the people has almost zero value, to transform that, into a dashboard that you can maybe give out to your security team, InfoSec team, to actually like visualize, hey, what's going on with the endpoints. That said, a few resources. Quirke code, pretty simple. It's gonna take you to the Jamf Protect GitHub. We have put out there quite a lot of unified logging samples. I want to specify they don't work just with Jamf Protect, like they are just unified logging filters, right? So you should just run them on macOS, whatever other MDM you have, just run them. If you wish, they're out there, go try them out, open issues if you have any, drop pull request. If you have any cool unified logging, we'll be happy to take them into our GitHub. So if you do, please open a pull request. If anyone wants the slide for whatever reason of this session, QR code with the slides of the session. I also uploaded like a few of my JNAV presentation and stuff, so everything is right there on GitHub. And yeah, that said, that's all, folks. So I'm the only thing in between you and the pub. So I take, there's no question, right? But if anyone has any question, I'm happy to take them. Can we just talk me and you tomorrow, like at work? What was the question, sorry?
What do you find people most commonly?
So the question was what I do find people using unified logging most commonly for. I would say there is a trend recently to start using them for security purposes. You want to start tracking failed authentication. You want to start tracking, hey, are my user, like, if you have whatever login window customization you have, Jamf Connect or whatever is out there, are my user trying to bypass that? Why are they doing that? So actually intake all those informations. Unified logging are extremely helpful as well. You can stream the actual EPOL logs. So they are actually the Wi-Fi logs. That's extremely helpful when you actually want to know, hey, are my users like, hey, we're rolling out a new network. We gave everyone a new certificate. Are people actually using that, going there? Are they having issues? Are they getting like 25 pop-ups? Hey, click this certificate, put your password, put your mother birthday, whatever. That's all information that you can actually get from unified logging, and you can actually pipe them into a SIEM and actually unify this data and get like valuable information out there rather than relying on ticket being submitted by your user. You can actually be proactive and kind of like try to figure out, or I don't know, if you roll out a new application, are the user actually opening the application? Because that's another thing you could potentially get for unified logging. Hey, we pay like an incredibly expensive license for this application because all the user wanted. Cool. Are user even opening that application, right? So yeah, there's actually a lot of option, and if you do have a SIEM, which probably most of the company do, that's pretty great. Do you have a question? Hi, James.
In the old days, you could use shut the text box. I would think something like that. Is there a built-in tool for shipping box to something else?
So sorry, I'm just repeating the question for the streaming. The question was like in the kind of old days, we could do like syslogging, so stream the device logs directly to an HTTP endpoint or something. In today's world, rather than using the product mentioned there, which I might not work for, how can we do that? There isn't an easy way, in the sense that in today's world, you're gonna need like an actual agent to do the streaming on your behalf. There's nothing built in. You could technically, and bear with me because now we're going super geeks. You could technically, so all those logs, there's like a command, it's called like sysdiagnose, that will just grab all the logs together and ship them into a log archive. Rich Troughton built a nice script where you can actually put this and basically upload daily these logs into an S3 bucket. Then you have this huge amount in there, and you're like, how do I figure out how to pull these logs? So it's better if you pay a license to someone. Yeah, but he wasn't something like Splunk has the same, like you can install an agent on the device and they're going to ship the logs. Almost every vendor. Yeah, there's like an indexer that. Yeah.
Anyway, long story. That's not good, but we'll not put it out.
So yeah, long story short, you basically either build it yourself or buy. It's like build it or buy it. There's nothing really built into. OS query. Yeah, you could technically do that with OS query and just ship part of the logs. You could pull like, don't want to go like too long, but there's macOS 12. There's also like ES Logger, which is like an improved and blow your mind version of unified logging, which will grab also security event logs. But yeah. And I think that's all. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, mate. Cheers. Right, that's pretty much us done. First of all, thank you to Steve and the folks at Thoughtworks for hosting us. Thank you to Dave and the folks at Jamf for feeding and drinking us. What's the right word? Watering us. And thanks to our speakers, Steve and Matteo, who's hidden at the back, and me, I guess. Most of all, thank you to all of you for coming on. It's been way too long. We'll try and get things a bit more back in motion to how they were pre the dark times, shall we say. Again, if anyone's interested in speaking or hosting or both, it will probably be both if you're hosting. I'm just going to say it now. Please reach out to any of us, Slack, in person, carrier pigeon might work, don't know. But yeah, reach out to us. We'd love to have any of you here. Thank you so much again. Cheers.